Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Millie Waller, and I'm excited to share this really incredible article with you all today. The article is entitled, Middle Grades Teachers' Use of Motivational Practice to Support Their Visions and Identities as Middle Grades Educators. This article was written by Amanda Wall and Samuel Miller. Today we will discuss how this article has impacted students and teachers today. In this article, you will learn about 4 different middle grades teachers and their naive theories. You may be wondering, what is a naive theory? In the classroom, a naive theory can be a number of things. It can be how you view motivation, how you view things to inspire your students. It's your own theory. It's what you make your classroom, how you make your classroom special, and how you make it important to you in your own personal ways that you challenge and inspire your students. So, in this article, they do a study on teacher candidates who define motivation and explain what aspects of motivation they would bring into their teaching. They also identify obstacles to motivation, and they describe evidence of student motivation, as well as prioritize whether their understanding of motivation related mostly to students' expectations to do well in school, to their reasons for involvement in activities, or to their perceptions of classroom belongings. So, throughout this case study, the teachers were neither observed nor interviewed inside the classrooms. Rather, they took very experienced and very successful middle grades teachers and their understanding of student motivation through a prolonged case study. And throughout this case study, they took these teachers and just asked them questions about what they feel is important in their class and what they feel like is a good motivator and a good motivation tool for their students personally. Many studies have shown that motivation can decline during middle grades, so this was a very important case study that went on, and the people that were in charge of it felt that it was very necessary and vital to the growth of middle grades teachers and middle grades students. Motivation is something that can get lost in the works and lost in the midst of learning how to do new things, and we found through this case study that motivation is extremely important in teachers' naive theories. In researching and studying the attributes of these incredible middle grades teachers, we learned that the lack of clear structure among these teacher candidates prompted the question of what aspects of knowledge might contribute to a teacher's growing understanding of motivation. It was also important to understand how the teacher identifies themselves relative to their roles and responsibilities. So basically this means that each teacher individually view their roles and responsibilities completely different. So these teachers with these intense and elaborate naive theories were teachers who really cared about their role and their responsibility as a teacher. They sought to see motivation in their students, and they sought out their students to make sure that they were being successful and that they were learning and they were capable of what the teacher was asking of them. They took the students where they were and took them where they needed to be. So our first teacher in our middle grades case study is Miss Green. Miss Green was a well-known teacher in Laurel, Mississippi who was known for her caring persona. Miss Green had an incredible ability to love and care for her students and make them all feel important and intelligent. For Miss Green, belonging was a pathway to student success. She was exceptionally attuned to students' lives and interests and saw her role as teaching more than content alone. In a post-observation interview, she commented on the dynamics of different classes, and this is what Mrs. Green had to say about it. I've tried really hard to create an environment where they feel caring. So I've tried to make up, we accept you no matter what, and we're all different and we learn in different ways, but that's okay because we love each other. So as you can see, Miss Green's naive theory came from her love for students and her care for them, and her motivation behind that was just because she simply loved them and she had a desire to see them succeed and to see them grow. And I personally think that that is key to being a successful teacher. Our next teacher that we will be hearing from is Miss Payne. Miss Payne may have been the youngest teacher in this case study, but she by no means was falling short in any area. Miss Payne shared more interest in cultural references, particularly in gaming, with students than other teachers did. Her vision for teaching related to the importance of providing time and access to students to learn in a caring environment, and her naive theory centered on expectancy for success. So Miss Payne was one of those teachers who focused on success, and she focused on having that high expectation for her students. So we'll learn about how she used that high expectancy to use as a motivation. Miss Payne focused on students' needs when explaining how she came to middle school, and this is what Mrs. Payne had to say about it. Mainly the motivation to want to teach. I did not have very incredible middle school teachers, so it was actually kind of the lack of good teaching in middle school that made me want to be a middle school teacher, seeing that need there. She identified strongly with middle school and understood that motivation varies. Sometimes it takes a while to figure out, what's the best motivational tool. And it's very, very flexible from class to class and throughout the year. And definitely with different groups of kids, you have different motivators. It's something that's always changing. So Miss Payne, like Miss Green, also took the students where they were and took them where they needed to be. Miss Payne was different because she understood that each student was an individual student with different needs and different things that they needed to learn how to be the best student that they could be. So Miss Payne was great at taking individual students where they were to where they needed to be. Our next teacher that we will be learning about is Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith implemented differentiation through his layered science curriculum. Students were divided into 3 groups with different tasks for each group. And Mr. Smith's naive theory of motivation started with his efforts to support student success through self-worth. He enacted his theory through interactions with students in the layered curriculum. Mr. Smith was surprised when these people came with a case study asking him about motivation, because he feels that it's not asked about enough, but that is very important in the classroom. And Mr. Smith uses this to increase motivation through increasing self-worth. Our last teacher that we will be learning about is Mrs. Bates. Miss Bates was strategic, resourceful, and exacting in her teaching. Her naive theory of motivation involves students experiencing success by valuing their learning and achievement belonging in an academic environment. She had a very clear vision of success and her responsibility to model this preparation, curiosity, and excitement she hoped to cultivate among students. So Miss Bates' goal was to cultivate an exciting thing that these students would want to do and that they would want to achieve in, and she wanted the students to be proud of their work and proud of the intellect that they gained through their education. You might be wondering, how am I supposed to remember all of these ways to motivate my students? Well, here are 4 easy ways to remember them. The first one is create a caring environment. The second one is expect success. The third is support student success. And the last one is encourage valued learning. These are the 4 things that our teachers emphasize through these case studies.